Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen tells me how to raise my kid. After that, am I the jerk for uninviting my sister-in-law and mother-in-law from everything? And after that, I failed 27 out of 31 students for not taking a quiz. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to tell anyone else how to raise their kids. What would I know about being a parent? You refuse to have kids with me. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen tells me how to raise my kid. I, 24 female, have a 3-year-old son named Cass, who's the light of my life. He's a real sweetheart, and if he had it his way, he'd be carried around in my arms all day long and only put down when we come across a cool bug. He doesn't talk very often. It's something that I was worried about in the beginning because as a young mom, I worried about almost everything. But the pediatrician told me that he'll likely become more talkative over time. I'm currently looking into speech therapists just to see if that will help a bit, and we're currently learning sign language too, so Cass can switch to that when he doesn't feel like using his voice. He's such a smart kid, and he's so curious about everything. All he ever wants to do is explore and learn about new things. I'm so proud of him, and I love being his mom and getting to see the world through his eyes. My mom, 50 female, doesn't like the approach I've taken to my son's tendency to not speak very often. There have been a few times where he'll clearly be asking for something and she'll refuse because he isn't using his voice. It's one of the main reasons why I never ask her to babysit, because it bothers me when she does that and I stop it every time. We were all at a restaurant with my stepdad, 55 male, my stepbrother, 30 male, his wife, who's 30, and their son, James, who's 4. When it came time to order, I read some options out to Cass, and he signed yes for the meal he wanted. James spoke to the waiter on his own. When the waiter walked away, my mom got upset with me. She said that because I'm the parent, I need to tell Cass to get over his stubborn attitude about speaking, and that his refusal to do so is ridiculous. My stepdad then expressed concerns about the fact that James was saying full sentences by 2 years old, but Cass is 3, and he'd only ever heard him say about 5 words. I told them both that I didn't appreciate them trying to have that conversation with me in front of Cass and at a family lunch, but then my mom said that if Cass had an issue, he should use his voice to tell them that, instead of relying on me to do it for him. I ended up flagging the waiter down and asking for my part of the bill, and if I could get the food to go, because I didn't think this was fair for my son to have to sit there and listen to them talk about him like he couldn't even understand what they were saying. Once I paid and got the food, we went home. My mom texted me later saying that I'm doing my son a disservice by not making him speak, that it was rude of me to leave lunch like that just because I didn't like the way the conversation was going, and that it speaks to my immaturity. Truthfully, if I had pushed him to do it, I know he would have verbalized what he wanted, but he clearly felt more comfortable signing, so I didn't feel the need to do that. Regardless, was it an immature/jerk move to leave like that? Edit. Cass is fully capable of speaking. He has said a full sentence before. He just doesn't talk very often, and especially not in front of other people or in public. Like I said, I've spoken to his pediatrician. I'm currently looking for speech therapists, and I've been thinking about getting him assessed for a while now. I'll just have to bring it up to the doctor. Cass uses sign. He has vocab cards and flashcards, and he already knows how to spell all of his favorite words. We work on his words all the time. It's one of his favorite things to do. No, the biological dad isn't involved. It's just Cass and me. Edit 2. I don't mean to sound offensive or anything, but please read the first edit before telling me what I should be doing for my son. I've spoken to his doctor multiple times. I'm looking for a speech therapist. I've been looking into getting him assessed. I offer him multiple different methods of communication. I encourage him to speak when I know he's comfortable to do so. Also, he knows more than 5 words. My stepfather just stated that he's only ever heard Cass say about 5 words. Cass has a large vocabulary. He just doesn't verbalize it often. Absolutely not the jerk. I have a kid who's on the autism spectrum and has selective mutism. The situations you are describing sound so familiar to me, and the absolute worst thing you can do is try to push the issue and force them to talk. Not only will it not work, it can make the issue worse. You're doing right by your child. Your mother is being an ignorant jerk. OP. I've actually been thinking about getting him evaluated. If he is on the spectrum, I want to be able to accommodate him in whatever ways he might need and learn as much as I can to make things easier for him. It's definitely worth considering getting him assessed. Maybe it isn't autism, But if you go through the process, then at least you will know and maybe gain a better idea of what's going on and how best to support your son. Sign language is a great tool to use to assist in communication when they're unable to find words, regardless of any potential underlying concerns. It sounds like you're doing a great job as a parent. Not the jerk. You're an excellent mom. Your mom, however, is a total jerk. You're already a better mom than you ever had. You're a rock star for not taking their manipulation and judgment. Not the jerk. This is why I went no contact with my parents. They never stopped telling me how I should be raising my kids. The way I see it, if French fries and chicken nuggets is all they want to eat, then just let them eat it. At least they're eating something. I couldn't stand being forced to eat steak and veggies growing up, so I would never make my kids eat it. My boomer parents flipped out about the language my kids used. What am I supposed to do? Take their phones away so they can't learn certain words that might upset people? Same thing with bedtime. I hated having to go to bed at a certain time, so I decided early on my kids would go to sleep when they chose to. They still usually go to sleep by midnight, which is when I go to sleep too. I homeschool all of them in a natural way, so we wake up when our bodies tell us to, which is usually at about 11ish, and then we go for our morning walk in the woods. I don't teach them math and science, but I teach them the natural ways of life. The way I see it, I never actually used any of the crap they taught me in school, so I don't waste time teaching my kids any of it either. I teach them about plants and animals, love and light, what our roles are as light workers, and how it's up to us to light the path for all of the fools like my parents who are lost in the darkness. My parents will never get to have a relationship with my kids because their outdated beliefs make them monsters in my eyes, and I want nothing to do with them. There's a reason my kids need so much therapy, and it's not because of how I've raised them. It's the darkness that surrounds us. But as a light worker, I will never surrender. Well, who do you agree with? OP or Grandma? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for uninviting my sister-in-law and mother-in-law from everything? I'm 7 months pregnant with my first kid. The baby is also the first grandchild and nephew of my husband's family, which everyone is excited about. I lost my mother and father during lockdown, and being an only child, there's not much of my family. Since the passing of my parents 1 year ago, my husband's family has welcomed me with open arms as part of them, and I've become very close to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. I always wanted to have a gender reveal, and I trusted my sister-in-law to organize everything about this. With 3 days to go before the party, I started to receive messages from all my husband's relatives and even close friends congratulating me on my baby being a boy. I went to ask what happened, and my sister-in-law confessed that she let it slip to my mother-in-law, and she told everyone that we were having a boy because she couldn't hold it in and it took proportions beyond what they imagined. Nobody called me to tell me this. The party was canceled and I was heartbroken, as well as extremely hurt by the two of them. Usually they accompanied me to the ultrasound, shopping for the baby's room, and my mother-in-law would stay at the time of delivery. But after this breach of trust, I stopped inviting them and asked them to respect my boundaries when they pressured me to go. Honestly, I didn't even send them the baby shower invite because I really avoided contact with them as much as possible because everyone knew before me that it was a boy. My husband started complaining that I was pushing them away because of a mistake that could happen and that I was being harsh. Yesterday, he brought this up, and when I said that I still didn't feel comfortable with them, he said, "Soon you'll tell me that my mother won't be able to go to the birth." I think my face showed my response, and he started saying I was being too hard on her because she was just excited and blah blah blah. I had my limit and said, "If you keep pushing me, it won't just be your mother who won't be on my labor. So either stop or you won't be there either." He started to say that I was crossing lines and that he had a right to have this moment. I was taking this with them too far. He slept on the couch and isn't talking to me more than necessary. Am I the jerk? Well, many are saying it's just a gender reveal. I honestly don't care for that, and I think it's tacky. But my mom was the type who liked and loved it, and she always dreamed of having grandkids. She said she was made to be a grandmother. She can't meet my son or even know I'm pregnant, so I wanted to do something tacky that I don't care for her, not for me. Everyone knew the importance and the reason. I always wanted to have a gender reveal with my mom there, and I didn't have either. Extra. Let's go to some points. At no time did I say that I would never approach them again, but right now I don't see myself doing that. I already have grief, pregnancy hormones, and day-to-day stress to deal with, so I don't want anything else to bother me. Obviously, I want my husband to be at my childbirth. But it's a lot of stress. He brings this topic up all the time, and I doubt he'll stop, even at the time of my delivery, trying to convince me. Even if he goes, if he says anything about his mother coming in, I'll ask him to leave. Your husband started complaining that you were pushing them away because of a mistake that could happen and that you were being harsh. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Your sister-in-law made a choice and told mother-in-law. Mother-in-law then made a choice to tell everyone else in the family. Your husband is making the choice to pressure you into things, which is leaving you to make some choices of your own now. You are allowed to make your own choices. Nobody, not even the husband, has a right to be in the delivery room. May seem harsh, but it's true. The person going through the procedure has the choice of who gets to be in there. Birthing a child is not an all-access pass for everybody else who wants to be there. It's not a spectator sport. It's a medical procedure to get a little human out of another human, not the jerk. Your sister-in-law slipping could have been an honest mistake. Your mother-in-law spreading it around was a concise choice. You may be going a little too far with your sister-in-law. Again, possible accident. But your mother-in-law made her choice and is now dealing with the consequences, not the jerk. OP. About the slip-up, that's okay. But from what I understand, it happened the night before, and at no time did she come to talk to me about what had happened. I found out from others the gender of my baby, and I went after her to ask. If she'd let it slip and called me to let me know sometime after what she did, I wouldn't have been so upset. I think anyone would be upset. You can't unring a bell. You're still grieving your parents. You are happy and sad at the same time. It's confusing. I got pregnant with my son within a month of my father passing from lockdown. Baby is almost 1.5 now, and he's so amazing. I still get heartache, though, about my dad not being here and not meeting him. So the gender reveal was special to you because you were doing it in a way to connect with your mother. Tell mother-in-law and sister-in-law, I'm grieving my parents. I miss them so much, and it's hard knowing they'll never see me as a mother and never know the baby. The only reason I wanted a gender reveal is because it's something my mother would have loved, and you ruined it. It hurts because I'll never get it back, and my chance to feel close to my mom is gone. I need some space. I hope I can feel the same closeness to you as I did before this happened. That's what I want, and I want my baby to have a life with extended family in it. I'm not ready. I'm so sad. This is how I feel. Please, let's stop talking about it. Please stop talking to husband about it. I need his support. I'll reach out when I'm ready, but for now, I need to handle things on my own. I failed 27 out of 31 students for not taking a quiz. I teach a math class in 8th grade. Because the classroom is really small and there are so many people, they sometimes are a bit loud. But that's okay, and I try to give my best to accommodate them to be most comfortable. Wednesday, they were really loud, and I announced an online quiz because we did not come to the point to do it in class. I also stated that I would upload it on Thursday and it would be due on Friday at 6 p.m. It's not much, 10 questions, just to see where everyone is at, but it is graded. I repeated myself twice that it was mandatory and graded, and they did not listen apparently. I uploaded the quiz and 4 people actually took it. They received feedback and their grade. The rest did not take the quiz, so I gave them all a 0 today. In less than 15 minutes, the first student mailed me that I could not just fail him. A few students joined in complaining about the 0. Some of them apologized for not turning it in. Then a mother emailed me, how could I fail her precious daughter? And that if 27 people failed, it would mean my quiz was too hard and I would be a jerk to fail them all. Until now, I did not respond to any of these emails because then they would expect me to answer everybody. I'll do this on Monday. But I'm wondering, am I the jerk for failing them? Maybe for information, it's maybe 1% of their grade. Edit, because I realized I need to clarify something. They were allowed the entire period. Normally, this is not the case. I don't know what was different this day. This caused us to be slower than I planned and not being able to test where everybody stood on the topic. So at the end of the lesson, I told them that this quiz was being uploaded and that they would have to take it. They were not especially loud then, but some were distracted with packing their things and stuff. Edit too, because someone said it was important. It was written on the board. It was written in the class book. There's all this stuff written down and means of tasks and topics from their classes. Update. I just got another email from the same mother asking why I did not reply to her email since she wrote the first email a few hours ago. I love parents. Last edit. Because I can't answer every single comment, thank you all for your judgments. While there were many helpful and respectful comments with constructive feedback, I'm really shocked that people insult me as a person for an action I post here. I do not talk about the "you're the jerk" judgments. I take them. I talk about the ones telling me that I'm a horrible person, a bad teacher, or even insinuating that I'm mentally sick, via comments and via private messages. Maybe think before insulting someone for one single action without knowing what else happens in my classes and life. Now to the quiz. They knew how to do it. They did it often before. They won't fail the whole class because of it. Also, I'm not responsible for telling their parents to remind them of a quiz. They're old enough to remind themselves. Many suggested that they could retake the quiz. They can, but not for full credit and not in class. I'll tell them on Monday, and it will be due Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., also online. As it is a simple 10-question multiple-choice test you can do in 10 minutes on your phone, that is more than enough time. Also, an update on the mother emailing me twice. I got an email from her daughter telling me how she was sorry that her mom messaged me as she panicked, as her mom saw a 0 and told her that the quiz was too hard because she forgot about the quiz and therefore did not take it. Edit. The insults continue, and so does the teaching advice from some people here, again in private and in the post. To make it clear to you, I accept every single "you're the jerk" statement as everyone is entitled to their own opinion. But I do not need your advice on classroom management, my teaching skills, or my personality for asking a judgment of one specific situation. The situation is this one quiz, not my general teaching, because you don't know my teaching style, as you only got told this one single situation. Also, yes, I get it. This post has language errors. Surprise, I am no native English speaker, as I stated before. Teacher here. Let the 0 stand, or you're teaching them that refusing to work and then complaining about it is acceptable. Give them an in-class assignment that is 1, basically the same thing, and 2, worth enough points that it brings up their averages. You could even give them the exact same thing, and the kids who did it the first time get a double benefit since they already got the points and the feedback. Not the jerk. They're in school to learn more than math. This is a teachable moment. Not the jerk. Professor here. Please let the 0 stand. Otherwise, they learn that they can bully their way through a class. If it was on the board, you announced it, and several students completed the quiz, they had sufficient notice. As another teacher, it sounds like we need some better classroom management skills, my man. I understand that middle school can be tough, but you gotta have high expectations for them and set limits. If these knuckleheads can't follow directions, you're just in your right to fail them. Well, what do you think? Should OP let the 0 stand or not? Please let us know. I could never stand it when all the other kids kept talking real loud and I couldn't hear the teacher. The classes I enjoyed the most were the ones where the teachers didn't allow that kind of stuff to happen. Call me crazy, but the strict teachers were my favorite ones. The ones where when you're talking and you're not supposed to be, they'll just stop whatever they're doing and stare at you until you stop. My dad's cousin's ex. Let me tell you a story about my dad's cousin. She's in her late 70s, early 80s. Well, she was married to a super high up of some company. They had 2 kids, but had a wonderful prenup. It was Ironclad, where if they divorced, she got nothing but what was acquired during marriage, and he paid child support. If she cheated, she forfeits everything but child support. If he cheated, he had to pay her alimony and child support until she got remarried. No matter what she made, it was set that she got $5,000 a month alimony. After the kids were 18, her alimony went down to $2,500 a month if she still was unmarried. The man was loaded. Well, he cheated, and she got proof. Actually, his boss caught him and liked her, so he told her, even testified to it. Plus, he didn't deny it in court. He was having an affair with his young secretary. So she got alimony and child support. Well, years later, after she finished cosmetology school, she ended up opening up her own hair salon in the South. She has a lot of those upscale assisted living facilities, so now she's also loaded. She drives a super cute red convertible Mercedes. Well, they divorced when she was 30. She still has never remarried. He's still paying alimony. She has had a serious boyfriend for 30 years, but she said just to spite the ex, she will not remarry unless he passes. So he's been married 4 times since, but no matter what, because of his prenup, he insisted on, she still gets that $2,500 a month. Well, for at least 40 to 45 years, so far he's been paying. She said after what he did to her, making her give up her dreams and sign a prenup, she was going to make him pay. She did eventually go finish school and follow her dreams after the kids were grown. She's the nicest person too. His other wives were nowhere near as nice. He made sure his prenup granted them nothing but child support. Also, her boyfriend and her don't live together, but they have been neighbors for years. They both want their own space. He also has his own money. She doesn't even need her ex's money and just puts it in an account for her grandkids' college. She also likes to donate some to women's shelters. She donates it in his name so he gets notifications or notes that money was donated in his name. She says the day he passes, she and her boyfriend will go to the courthouse. Everyone in the family knows, and every time we see her, my father laughs and says, "So, the ex is still alive and paying?" Am I the jerk for telling my kids to borrow money from their sister, not me? I have 4 kids. Carmen, who's 32, Elisa, who's 28, Michael, who's 26, and Andrew, 21. Carmen and Michael are both lower middle class. Carmen is a single mom of 2 and works as a nurse. Michael and his wife are teachers and are expecting their first kid. Carmen makes $100,000 a year. Michael and his wife make a little over $100,000 combined, and we live in California near the Bay Area, where $100,000 is considered low income. Elisa is a nanny for an extremely rich family. I don't know if she's considered live-in because she lives in a separate house but on the same property. She makes $250,000 per year plus bonuses, doesn't pay for rent or utilities, rarely buys groceries because she always eats with the family. They bought her a brand new car. They pay for her gas, maintenance, all of her medical, dental, vision, etc. is 100% paid for by the family. They even pay for her gym membership and her vacations. She's worked for them for 2 years now and recently bought a rental building in cash. Needless to say, she's doing very well for herself. Michael and Andrew just asked me for money. Michael needs $30,000 for part of a down payment for a townhouse, and Andrew wants $10,000 so he can graduate with no debt. I told them to ask Elisa for money, not me, and that she could easily afford to help them out. Elisa called me the other day, asking what I said to her brothers because now they're both asking her for money. I told her what I told them, and she yelled at me for volunteering her to help with her brother's expenses. I told her that I never said she would help them, I just said that she easily could. She said she doesn't feel comfortable loaning money to family because she doesn't want to risk their relationship if they don't pay her back. I told her it shouldn't be a big deal if they don't pay her back because we know her Christmas bonus will be close to double what her brothers want. Plus, if she says no, she could potentially risk her relationship with her brothers because she can afford it. She hung up on me and hasn't spoken to me since, so I wanted to know if I was the jerk. You're the jerk. You basically reviewed your daughter's finances and deemed that she can afford to give thousands of dollars to your kids without even speaking to her. You could have simply said no to your sons. Instead, you created family drama among your kids. If I was her, I wouldn't share any of my business with you ever again. You seem to hold her success against her. She worked her butt off and made sacrifices to plan for her future. Working with wealthy people is exhausting. They are demanding and fickle. Kids are work too. Ugh. You're the jerk. Beyond what everyone else has said, being a nanny is by definition a time-limited job. The kids grow out of needing that level of care. The employer's circumstances change. Elisa may never again be so fortunate. She's wisely investing in the rental property and preparing for her own future. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Never tell anyone how much money you make, especially your friends and family. I do work here, but also I live here, and this isn't PetSmart, lady. Recently, I have begun a dog walking and pet sitting business that I run out of my house with express permission from my landlord. I've worked with animals for years, and I'm grateful to finally be able to do it for a halfway decent living. That being said, I've been much busier than I anticipated, and as such, I've been a little stressed about overextending myself. I even had a nightmare about forgetting that I had to watch a dog, and the dog was left alone at their house for several days. Even though it was just a nightmare, this prompted me to get more serious about my organization and scheduling so I wouldn't miss anything. Nowadays, my schedule is rock solid, and I've been super on top of it. I only say that so you guys can understand the immense confusion I felt when the doorbell rang at 2 p.m. on Monday and I heard a dog barking outside. I get my dogs calmed down and answer the door. On my doorstep is an elderly woman, maybe 80 years old, holding a very cute West Highland Terrier. For anyone not familiar, they're the dog on the Caesar dog food package. I'm honestly so confused by her being there that my mouth does not form words. I just sort of stand there, opening and closing my mouth like a fish out of water, while my brain is just screaming, "You forgot! You forgot!" After a moment, she graciously saves me from myself and talks first. I'll refer to her as LOL for little old lady.
Hello, I'm little old lady, and I'm here to drop off my dog for boarding.
At this time, I'm almost positive that my nightmares have literally come true, and I've straight up deleted a dog from my short-term memory. But as I'm racking my brain, I cannot remember ever seeing this dog or this woman before. Me. Hi, who is this little guy? Little old lady.
This is Chico. I was hoping to leave him with you for the weekend while I visit my grandson.
Okay, hoping. That's an interesting word. Now I'm less anxious, but more confused. Me. Okay, have we spoken about Chico before?
Oh, no. But your neighbor Laura said you watch dogs, so I just brought him over.
Okay, now this is making more sense. Laura was my previous neighbor who had recently moved out. I had watched her dogs dozens of times, and she was always very kind to give my name out to people who were looking for dog sitters. Sometimes, however, she did treat me as on call, in the sense that she would call me as she was pulling out of her driveway to tell me she was leaving for the weekend and I would need to watch the dogs. She would play it off like she was so frazzled and forgot, but it started to get old after the third or fourth time. At this point, I have a little old lady with her energetic dog on my porch, and still more questions than answers. So I invite her in while I try to get to the bottom of it. Come to find out, little old lady was a friend of Laura's mother, whom I had never met. Laura had a couple of my business cards at her house, and apparently the last time her mother was visiting, she took a couple of them to give to her friends. Apparently, Laura inherited her entitlement from her mother, as her mother told little old lady I was available anytime for dog sitting. Literally anytime. Worse yet, because Laura was my next door neighbor, Laura's mom figured out my address and gave it to little old lady. Because of that behavior, little old lady had the impression that I was a dog boarding facility, and she was just as confused as I was to arrange at a normal-looking house. After we got it all explained, little old lady and I had a pretty big laugh about it. Little old lady was super apologetic and sweet, but I knew it really wasn't her fault, so there was no harm done from her. She was just a sweet old lady who got a little confused. Unfortunately, because I was already booked, I couldn't watch Chico. But good news. Little old lady determined she could just visit her grandson this weekend, and I went ahead and booked her for it. Chico and my dogs had plenty of time to socialize while little old lady and I were chatting, and they were becoming fast friends. I think I may have just fallen backwards into a great client. Still, I was a little upset, so I called Laura to please ask her mother to not tell people that they can just come by anytime. Laura was legitimately confused as to why it was an issue. After a few minutes of going around in circles, I simply said I can't watch any dogs that I don't know and left it at that. While I wish that was the end of it, 2 days later, Laura calls me to tell me that she has just left her house and could I please watch the dogs. I gently remind her that she had just moved 3 hours away and I was no longer her neighbor. She just gave a half-hearted, "Oh," and hung up. God bless her. Don't touch the iPad? You got it. Until recently, I worked at a fine dining restaurant. I was there for 3.5 years, and the majority of that time I was a busser. By the time I left, I was the most tenured person in the front of house by a fair margin, including managers, which we burned through ridiculously quickly. And everyone I directly worked with had good things to say about my work ethic and how I was with the guests. I could be abrasive as a person, but if I was in your section, you'd have a smooth night, professionally. Some background. Our restaurant was 90% reservation. One wasn't required, but if you wanted a table at a certain time, you made one. On occasion, we'd have walk-ins or someone wouldn't show up to their reservation, but the number of covers, people, you walked into was usually pretty spot on to what you'd end up doing. Most of them were for two, but we'd also take larger tables. If the night was all two tops, we wouldn't set up for anything else, and anything bigger than a four top, we'd have to push the tables together. Not an issue, but a little time consuming to make sure every server was cool with the placement. Setup took between 2 and 3 hours, depending on how busy we were. Lastly, you'd figure out how busy we were from an iPad the hosts used, or that's how I did it. One winter, we had a shakeup. We had a new manager from our corporate parent take an open spot for a short-term contract. We'll call him Dave, and he quickly became one of my favorite managers. He was pretty no-nonsense and respected that he didn't know how our restaurant ran. Thus, he was open to talking through our reasoning and basically expected that we were good at what we did unless we proved otherwise. Our hosts were mostly young ladies, like still in or just out of high school. In several instances, it was a first job ever because the compensation was, and still is, pretty crappy. You'd get what you pay for, and many of them didn't have the refinement one would expect when paying over $100 a head before tax, tip, and alcohol. One, who we'll call Kay, was pretty protective of the iPad, at least when it came to me. When I came in, I would breeze up to the host stand, look at the numbers for a minute, then go set up. She, apparently, brought up that I would do this for no reason to Dave and to his boss, who told Dave to get me to knock it off so HR wouldn't have to mediate. That would have looked bad for basically everyone. She never got upset when anyone else looked at the spread of tables, but I digress. He asked why I was touching the iPad. I responded that I was looking at the numbers, the big tops, special requests for tables, stuff like that. He asked why I wouldn't wait until pre-shift for that. I told him that was 15 minutes before service. I might be able to change things in time if that happened, but I'd miss the rest of pre-shift, and if I had to put together tables, the restaurant would be at least partially not set. He asked specifically what I needed, and I told him a breakdown of the tables by time is what I looked at. He said he'd make sure I had one when I came in and told me not to touch the iPad again. Cool, that works for me. The next day I come in and it's waiting for me, handwritten because the app we use doesn't play well with printers. The day after, I asked him for it and he said he had forgotten he'd get it to me. Took him half an hour to write it out and double-check that he didn't miss anything. The malicious compliance here is twofold. At some point between day 2 and 3, Dave realizes that he has other stuff to do rather than write out the spread of tables every day. He's been asked to not let me touch the iPad, and I've told him I won't. So he talks to Kay and tells her she needs to write it out, and it needs to be done by the time I get in, about half an hour after she does. She, like Dave, realizes it's a lot of work for something I'll look at for 30 seconds and asks him to let me look at the iPad again. Sorry, no can do. We've gotten complaints and we don't want HR to get involved. Kay comes to me and offers me the iPad when I get in. Sorry, I've been given a direct order. I'll take the spread when you're done writing it up though. I'd planned on relenting after a week, but the servers ended up loving seeing what was coming in, and it became a staple of the host's job from then on. Kay ended up quitting after getting into it with another manager, but her contribution of a handwritten spread by the host is still going strong as far as I know.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.